Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Joe, Sleepy Joe, Uncle Joe, Pedo Joe, the big guy, whatever you want to call him, or whatever people call you, what are you doing, man? What a total coward Joe Biden is. If you're gonna say this kind of stuff, if you're gonna take these hardline stances, and if you're going to demonize and demean 50% of the country as being extremist threats, if you actually mean it to the point where you're willing to go in front of millions of people and say it out loud, you're willing to make it your main key talking point ahead of the midterm election, then you better stand by it. You better not take it back the next day, or actually what I meant to say was, or I wasn't really saying this, starting to justify and, quote, clarify what you actually meant. If you're gonna say that stuff, if you're gonna go that far, then you better be ready to stand by it, lest you look like an absolute coward, or even worse, a phony, dishonest politician. But here's the thing, folks, we know a whole lot about Sleepy Joe. The man's been in the public eye for decades, like 5 decades or so. And if there's 2 things we know about Sleepy Joe, it's that he's definitely a dishonest politician and he's definitely a massive coward. Not even 24 hours after his despicable, disgusting, authoritarian speech, Joe Biden apparently walks back his claims. You gotta be kidding me, folks. This guy continues to be the biggest clown to ever enter the Oval Office. And that, of course, is exactly what we gotta talk about here. Just how disingenuous and dishonest, and frankly, just how much of a terrible human being Joe Biden continues to prove himself to be. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We've got some stuff to talk about. So, of course, like usual, let's roll the tape. All right, friends, so quickly, a little bit of context, a little bit of a flashback. Joe Biden definitely said that MAGA extremists and Trump Republicans are a threat to the nation, right?
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. That the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy, who reject the extreme MAGA ideology, no matter what the white supremacists and the extremists say.
All right, so we're clear. Joe Biden is on the record. Like I said, he said that in front of millions of Americans. Those clips across the internet have been viewed tens of millions of times. And then literally not even 24 hours later, well, that was quick, as Joe Biden apparently immediately walks it back. Quote, I don't consider any Trump supporter a threat to the country. Now Biden walks back his attacks on MAGA Republicans and insists that he was talking about people who, quote, call for use of violence and reject election results. Oh, so apparently he was talking about the mainstream Democrat Party. Oh, but listen to what he had to say.
All right.
Mr. President, do you consider all Trump supporters to be a threat to the country? No, everyone.
Come on, look, guys. You keep trying to make that case. I don't consider any Trump supporter to be a threat to the country. I do think anyone who calls for the use of violence, fails to condemn violence when it's used, refuses to acknowledge when an election has been won, insists upon changing the way in which the voters count votes. That is a threat to democracy.
Oh, well, that's a really, really interesting take, Mr. Biden. I mean, honestly, that has to be one of the dumbest responses of all time. First of all, there's the element of just own it. If you're going to take the stance, then just take the stance and don't be a coward and immediately pull back the next day. But his reasoning and the justification are equally as stupid, if not even more. He's talking specifically about people who refuse to condemn violence. Well, that's real interesting. Kinda like you. During the 2020 election, or the summer of riots, or, oh my apologies, the summer of peaceful protests, mostly peaceful protests. I've made this point a million times. It took Joe Biden over 100 days, over 100 days, to come out publicly and condemn the violence that was ravaging American cities and streets. over 100 days, Joe Biden refused to condemn the violence until focus groups started to turn on him, until independents and moderate Democrats started to have an issue with his silence on condemning the violence. For Pete's sakes, his vice presidential candidate promoted a bail fund that was bailing out violent felons and rioters that were burning down black communities. Condemn violence. I can't believe he takes that stance and expects us to take him seriously. Not to mention he's yet to condemn the violence and intimidation of Supreme Court justices. And of course the irony of that, he's claiming that the Supreme Court is somehow representing a fascist MAGA ideology when they're merely making a decision based purely on the Constitution that makes sense in terms of the legality of their decision. I wasn't aware that Democratic votes in the Supreme Court were somehow representative of fascism. Complete lunatic this man is. And of course the point that he's making when it comes to condemning of violence, you know what he's talking about, right? Obviously he's trying to make the point that Republicans don't condemn the actions on January 6th, even though basically across the board, immediately after, not only did President Donald Trump himself condemn the violence and tell people to go home, but every single Republican, every single conservative-minded YouTuber, every public figure and thought leader all soundly condemned the violence and the actions on January 6th. The only thing that frustrates Republicans is the endless witch hunt and the exaggeration, the insurrection narrative in Nancy Pelosi and Liz Cheney's disgusting, despicable January 6th show trial and show hearing, which the Democrats are falsely conflating as Republicans endorsing violence. And there's a connection here, folks. More proof that this whole thing is nothing but politics. It's all political. Just like the January 6th hearing, just like the January 6th narrative, it's all just a political tactic to win elections, to demonize a particular side in an effort to make themselves seem like the saviors, which they're hoping is going to lead to votes. That's what this whole thing's about, and of course that's exactly what Joe Biden's new tactic is. You know that it's political because if it wasn't, if Joe Biden truly meant what he was saying, then he wouldn't immediately backtrack the next day. If it was a true, strongly held belief, if he truly thought that there was a fascistic, extremist threat to the nation under the MAGA banner, you think that he would go on his unhinged rant the night before and then literally the next day say that he doesn't think that any Trump supporter is a threat to the nation? And that's exactly how we answered that question. He doesn't think any Trump supporter is a threat, yet less than 24 hours later, he was painting this grim and dark image of despair and this grave threat to American democracy under the banner of Donald Trump and MAGA. He takes it back because he doesn't actually believe it. He knows that it's not true and it's purely political. And the moment it started to backfire, the moment even CNN started to call him out on it, well then all of a sudden he maybe thinks, maybe I went a little bit too far, and maybe I should pull back a little bit, or I should use the age-old tactic of what I really meant was, no, there was no nuance to what Joe Biden was saying. What Joe Biden was saying was that Trump Republicans are fascistic and that they're a threat, a direct threat to American society and American democracy. There's no what I meant to say. You said what you said, and if you truly meant it, you would have stood by it. This guy's the biggest hypocrite, the biggest liar, the biggest political snake on the planet, and he continues to prove it with every single action. And geez, the lack of logic behind his flawed explanation the next day, and it's probably not even lack of logic, it's just the hypocrisy of it, refusing to condemn violence. How could you go there in good faith as a Democrat? And then of course refusing the results of the election. Like I said in the intro, he's basically describing Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. Refusal to accept a democratically elected president. Hillary Clinton still hasn't accepted the results of the 2016 election. Democrats still believe that the Kremlin unfairly and illegally tampered with the 2016 election to put Donald Trump in office. You cannot be this much of a hypocrite. But of course, it's nothing new. This is what we see from the Democrats over and over again. It's always nothing but projection, pointing the finger at the other side, claiming the extremism only exists on the other side. But they so easily forget that they're the party of Antifa and Black Lives Matter, the party of rioting, the party of violence and intimidation when they don't get what they want, the party that controls the fake news media, the party that aims to grow the federal government in the opposite image of what the founding fathers envisioned, an overarching, supremely powerful federal government ruled by simple Democrat Party majority and enforcing their decrees on the rest of the nation despite the will of state voters. But very simply, in conclusion, if you're going to take this kind of stance, then take it and stand by it. Stop playing politics and stop injecting all of this venom in American society and political discourse. If you're gonna say what you mean, then mean what you say, stand by it. But of course, as we've known throughout Joe Biden's 50-plus year political career, Joe Biden only ever says what he thinks in the moment is going to benefit him, depending on the audience. That's why I keep calling him a political snake, because that's exactly what he is, although probably a political chameleon is a more apt metaphor or description. That's what I got for you guys in this video, though. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you're up for it. We would, of course, love to have you as part of the Liberal Hive Mind community. I'm going to get back to work, though. I want to thank you guys for watching, and of course, I will see you on the next one.